Hi, happy Tuesday, besties and bosses. How are you? Happy, what do we call this? Spring forward, daylight savings. You'll have to let me know, how did yesterday treat you? I'm loving today, by the way, because for the first time since the time change, I'm always like futzing with the light and having technical difficulties, but we have still a little daylight today. So that's very, very exciting. At least on my part, I love this time of year when it's just a little bit brighter. Hey, Ariel, nice to have you on here. You'll have to let me know how yesterday treated you. I'm a part of a mastermind and we have our call at 7 a.m. in the morning on Mondays. And so yesterday we had our call and it was, obviously the day right after daylight savings changed, and my cat is not used to the time change yet with eating, so she was waking me up. It was like 4 o'clock in the morning. So yesterday I have to say the daylight savings hit me. Today I am just loving having the daylight like crazy. Stephanie, hi, so nice to have you here today. Oh, I'm so excited to see you. So happy spring forward. I'm sure yesterday everyone was feeling it a little bit, or I don't know if you all look at the time changes mixed up. I know UK, I think, doesn't have theirs yet, so I know that was making some futzy things, but I don't know. I'm excited for the extra hour of daylight now that we've gotten past kind of that sleep hurdle. You'll have to excuse me, I'm getting messages on my phone. All right, let's dive into today's topic. So I wanted to chat today about, I'm calling this the business hat that the gurus are not telling you about, that's really essential for bringing in that consistent and sustainable revenue in business. I think today might be a shorter live stream because I think it's a simple concept, and we're going to talk about what this is and the mindset behind it and why it's so important to adopt and just have a little bit of real talk. But you know me, I love to chat, so we'll see if it's actually short. I think this is a little bit more of a succinct topic today. Don't quote me on that. And before I dive in, I have to remember, because I always forget this, we are giving away one copy of my self-study content course, content that stands out and sells. It's a 5-part self-study course. It's really great. A lot of my clients have used this to book in their first clients. One of my clients, before even hiring me, I think hit her first 10K month just from taking the course alone. So obviously no promises there, but I think it's a pretty good one. It goes a lot more in depth than a lot of the content stuff I usually see. So we are giving away one of those today. All you have to do is leave a comment. So Stephanie, you're already entered. Leave a comment, let us know you're here. You can leave an emoji. If you win it and you don't want it, you can pass it on to someone else. We'll hop in the group tomorrow to pick a winner. So anytime between now and we pick a winner is fair game, and that's all you have to do to enter. I really just want to thank you all each week for being here and hanging with me. And I know it's loud online, so I'm just always so grateful to have you here and to get to have these conversations with you. All right, so today's conversation, I hear this from clients so often, and this is why I wanted to bring it. I think so often our online space, and I don't even think it's intentional, or I don't think it's meant from, for the most part, meant from an ill will place. I think this is just the nature of marketing and what marketing does. But I think so often our online space sells the concept of business instead of the reality of being a business owner. And I think this can be very, very frustrating then for people when they're in the experience of running a business, and also have them miss some of the elements that are really essential if you want to bring in consistent income. So what I mean by this is I think so often we are sold the concept, right, of if you're a business owner, you get to do the work that lights you up and you get to make great money. You get to have freedom and you get to go on vacation. I don't even think this is a thing anymore. When I came into the online space, it was literally the whole like work from anywhere, work on the beach on your laptop was like the thing that was sold. I really don't think I see that anymore, but I just remember being like, I've got no problem with that, but I remember when I came into the space, I was like, how does that work with like the glare and the sun and the sand and my really expensive MacBook? And I couldn't equate that, but I digress. But I think we have different versions of this pop up all the time, which is really, again, I don't think this is wrong. I think it's not bad that the concept of business is being sold, but a lot of times it's sort of like we get this glamorized version of business sold, similar to, hey Marie, nice to have you here. Hey Jen, nice to have you as well. Nice to see your faces. I don't know if you just hopped on, but we're giving away a course again for everyone now on the replay. So say hi and we'll pick a winner tomorrow. But you'll have to let me know if you find this to be true as well. But I think now the message may be a little different, but so much of it is really, I think, now it's more being sold a little bit in terms of like, it just gets to be like super easy and you never have to do anything at all. And money just like lands in your lap and you get to do the work that lights you up, which by the way, like I love my business and it's super flowy. And I feel like, a lot of that is true, but I think it sells the concept of business and not, again, the reality of what it means to run a business. I think this is so analogous to when I was acting. What I found tripped so many people up in the acting industry space is confusing the concept of being an actor and the concept of what it means to have an acting career versus the difference of working in the entertainment business and having a career and being paid for the craft of acting. We'll tease that out a little bit more, but I would see I spent 10 years in Los Angeles and 10 years doing the acting thing, and I saw so many people come in and like leave within 6 months or leave within a year. And I think part of the reason for that is they really got sold and bought into the concept of what it meant to be an actor instead of the reality of it. So I want to talk about that today and talk about the most important business hat I believe. Most important. They're all important, but I think this is a really, really, really important hat and what separates you from being sold on the concept of business to being a successful business owner. And I think it really makes all the difference in your longevity in business and your ability to make money on repeat. And that's really identifying with the role of being a business owner or being the CEO, not just the job you have doing your craft or doing your work. And I'm going to explain that difference, because I think they sound like the same thing and they are two completely different things and they're two important roles, but very, very different. And I think most people not only get sold the concept, but get stuck in the job of their work and miss out on the business owner aspect. So you'll have to let me know if this is making sense or if you want me to explain things more as we're going. So let me explain the difference and then we can talk about the mindset around that a little bit more. There's I mentioned this on a couple live streams ago. There's a great book called The E-Myth Revisited. I just brought on a new OBM to our team and she mentioned the book and I like ran through it. And I think it was just such a helpful explanation of so much of what I believe in business. And I think it's a little old school and there were a couple of concepts maybe I wasn't on board with, but I thought they did a really great job of explaining this difference. And they really broke business down into 3 roles, which I'll explain, but we're really talking about the 2 main roles I find most of us in. Stephanie says, yes, this makes so much sense. Awesome. So E-Myth Revisited, the way he describes the kind of like roles in business, he talks about being the technician. What does he call it? I think he calls it the technician, the manager, and the CEO. And so the technician is the person who's doing the job, but the manager is the one who's like managing all the people. The CEO is the one who's really running the business and kind of like the one coming up with everything and making sure the business is running like a business. So I think that's a helpful way to think about it. I think for you and I, the way I like to think about it is it's kind of the difference between working in your business and on your business and seeing the difference between your job and then your role as the business owner and really seeing those as 2 separate things. So I'm going to explain this through my acting career and then I'll explain it through business, but I think that's actually a helpful way to see it. When I was acting, so first there was the concept of being an actress and like just loving the craft of acting, which I still love the craft of acting, but loving the craft of acting and being in love with the concept of acting is very different than having an acting career and working in the acting industry that's a business. When I was in the acting industry, I had my actual job as an actress. When I got booked on a role, my job was to show up to set and to deliver that role. Literally, my role was to play my role, right? But that was my actual job. My job on that day was to be in my craft and to love my work and to be an actress. And to get that job and to be paid as an actress, it wasn't enough to book that job or to be really good at my craft or to be an amazing actress or to love the concept of acting or to be like so in love with acting, right? I mean, that was important, but in order to even get that job, I had to be the CEO of a small business, which was the business of my acting career. I always thought of that as a small business, which meant I had to really think about how am I treating this like a business and setting myself up with marketing and an agent, right? And sales essentially, which are auditions. And what are all these pieces I'm putting into place that really have nothing to do with actually the role of acting, but everything to do with getting paid in the business of acting. And I remember when I was acting, one of the things I would think about a lot is when I was auditioning for something, right? So when I was auditioning, yes, I was acting, and that was the craft, and I was in my job. But so many people hated auditioning, sort of like having sales calls. So many people like hate sales calls. And I remember thinking, but this is my job. If I just want to do acting because I love it, I should go do theater for fun, or I should go do projects for fun. If I want to do acting because I love it and I want to get paid at it, I have to treat this like a business. And I am now, as the CEO of my business, saying, hey, your job today, like I'm an employee of my business, your job today is to go out and get work that gets you paid. That's the job of auditioning. Even if auditioning doesn't feel like acting, that is the job my business required to make money. Hopefully that like way of thinking made sense. And like taking that an even bigger step back, as the CEO of my acting business, I would often think, so if someone else is gonna hire my company, so me as an actress, for a role, they're hiring my company and paying me money so that their company can also make money. Right? Just like you and I, if someone's hiring us, they're doing it for some sort of return. The return people might get from your work might not be income, but in the acting industry, at the end of the day, yes, they're hiring someone for their talent, sure. And they're hiring someone also to fill a role in a project that is being sold to bring in profit, ideally. And where a lot of people get, I think, screwed in the entertainment industry is they think it's simply do something you love in a craft, which it is, but it is an industry. It is an industry, and it's an industry that has a goal of financial return. And so thinking through that lens as the CEO of my industry and business, it would change the way I would approach auditions, and it would change the way in which I would go about booking work as a business owner selling the service of acting, as opposed to someone who loves the concept of being an actress and loves the concept or just loves the craft of acting. Does that make sense in terms of like how those are like on the outside, like the work itself looks the same, but the mindset and process behind it are two very different things. Stephanie says, I just told someone I don't want to quit my job to work another job that I own. I love you for saying that, because that is kind of exactly what we're talking about. And I think what Jen says makes sense. Thank you. I think E-Myth Revisited, I cannot think of the author's name. I'll grab the link and put it in here, unless someone wants to grab it, but I'll make sure I grab the link of the book. Again, it's a little old school, if I got the Audible, it's definitely a little old school, but I think the concepts are really well. And I think, Stephanie, to what you're saying, so much of what I thought he did a great job of articulating is how unintentionally what happens for people when they get sold the concept of business is they find themselves working another job that they own. And I mean, when you work a job for someone else, you get the benefits of not having to wear the business owner hat, and you just get to go do your job, get a paycheck, go home and get benefits, right? Like there's actually a trade-off to working a job. So if you're not wearing the business hat of being the business owner and being the CEO, you do find yourself in a job that you own without the benefits of what you get at an actual job. It's actually very, very frustrating. And I think this is where so many people get really frustrated with being an entrepreneur, the online space, just like I think what happens for so many actors, why they get so frustrated, is exactly what you're talking about, Stephanie. And I think when we can shift it to my most important role as a business owner is to step into the role of CEO and to treat my business like a business, and really to see how can I fall in love with being a business owner and with that part of my business, which is really working on your business more than in it. And I can explain the difference there. That changes the entire game. And then, yes, you might still employ yourself, right? I offer one-on-one services. So technically, my job is still, my job is I always have a job, but I'm selling my own services, and that I have to be in my business a lot more than some other business owners. And that's a trade-off I'm very okay with, and I've decided consciously, but I have to be very clear, even when I'm on coaching calls all day long. At that point, I'm really in the job of my business. I am not wearing the business hat of CEO at that point. And for that job to continue to pay me for the work I love to do, I have to make sure I am also wearing my CEO hat and running a business and not just work I love. Okay, let's see here. I see comment. Stephanie said, so I was speaking about those who do not know how to separate themselves as the business owner. Right, agreed. Yes, 1,000%. I think that is also, I'm going to come back to that because I think that's an important conversation. I just want to see. Stephanie says, you know me so well. Well, I think we think very in a lot of alignment there. I think to what you're saying, Stephanie, too, I think you bring a great point up in terms of not understanding how to separate yourself as the business owner, because that's part of what we're talking about here. But I think there's also, I don't know if this is necessarily what you mean, but what comes up for me is just the importance, and I talk about this with clients all the time, of also like separating yourself as the business owner, like we're talking about, where it's like you're seeing yourself as the CEO and you're allowing yourself to work on your business as much as you work in it. But also I think creating that separation and seeing as a business owner, you are also not your business. You are the owner of a business and entity. And like, I am not my business, I'm the owner of a business, and creating that separation so you can really make decisions as a business owner for your business, as opposed to what happens, I think, so often when we're in the job role of our business, we make decisions based on what's best for us individually and what feels good for us instead of what actually serves the business. And I think this is possibly part of what you're talking about, Steph. I think that difference is when you step back into role of CEO and you create a little bit of that separation, your role really is to start to look at what best serves my business, what are those decisions, and how can I really fall in love with that process and fall in love with my business as an entity separate from me, and the process of having and growing and building and scaling a business as much as I'm in love with the being in the business and the job and the work I love. Like, how can I love both? But also, how can I make decisions for my business, not just myself? And I think when I think back to acting, one of the things I think that served me and helped me think through things differently than some of the people I saw who just got really frustrated and left really quickly was being able to create that separation. And I mean, I'm human. Of course, I took rejection personally sometimes, and there were certain roles I really wanted, but I was also able to create such a separation in terms of, yes, there's like Kim in a role and Kim in the work doing her job, but then there's also stepping back as the owner of that small business, acting business, and really looking at what did that business need to be profitable? What did that business need to grow, to survive, and like being able to make decisions from that place instead of maybe what at any given time I as an individual might have wanted or needed, because those were not always the same thing, right? If I had a audition that maybe was scary or challenging, or if I had to have a really tough conversation with an agent, me as an individual would probably make a very, very different choice than me as the business owner seeing what is best here. And it just helped to make a lot of decisions and come from a much more neutral place. Star says, hi. Hi, Star. Nice to see you. I've got some good people on here today. Nice to see you, Star. So I think we're kind of like, we're sidetracking a little bit here, but I think that's just a really helpful thing to play with as well, is starting to see when you see those different roles and you see those different hats, when you're wearing that hat of CEO and business owner, really starting to be able to separate out, not just you from the job of your work that you love, and seeing when you're in your work, that's your job. When you're in your role of business owner and CEO, those are two separate things. But then when you're in the role of CEO, how can you even separate there from the business a little bit and really looking at it as an entity and what it needs, as opposed to what you as the individual or you in the role or job need itself. Let me know if you want another example there. I'm trying to think, I feel like my dad's career mirrored this really well. So maybe I'll give one more example. So my dad, some of you might know this, he was a race car driver for a really long time. And then he built a business as a race car driving coach or instructor. And I think one of the reasons he was really successful, and it's kind of everything we're talking about here. I would hear so often from people, oh man, that's so cool, I would love to do that, right? They were really in love with the concept of what it meant to be a race car driver, or what it meant to be a race car driving coach, and then would get really frustrated and burnt out on the industry very quickly because they were just in love with the concept, or they would just get into what it meant to be in the driver's seat. So when my dad would coach new people, I would literally grew up with this. So we'd always have drivers, coming over for dinner and things like that. And it was just interesting to see the ones who just kind of you never heard of again. And then the ones where it's oh, you just won the Indy 500. And I think one of the big differences I just witnessed and probably absorbed year after year after year is seeing those drivers who came through, just kind of seeing this through my dad's business and through those lenses, the ones who really came in where it's they were just really in love with the concept or in love with the craft of driving, had a very different trajectory than those who came in who, yes, were in love with their job of driving, but also really treated that like being a part of an industry. And I remember one of the drivers, I don't want to say names because I don't know if that's appropriate, but turned to be a very, very, very successful driver, but started quite young. And I remember his dad and his whole family would come over, and there would be meetings, essentially business meetings, and how much that whole process was not just about the driving and loving the driving and being on the track and winning a race, which is important, but also really looking at what was the business of being a race car driver that was successful, because you have to get sponsorships. I mean, there's a lot of the financial aspect, and if you're getting sponsorships, people are only giving you sponsorships if they think they're going to get a return on that investment, right? It is very much an industry and a business as much as it is a sport and a craft. I'm calling it a craft, maybe it's more a sport. And I just remember seeing how much of that work behind the scenes was business oriented and really putting on that CEO, how are we treating this like a business, as much as it was the literal technical, here's how you hit a corner at the apex to get a faster time and win a race. As much as it was that, it was some of the business elements. And that is a driver then who I saw go on to win the Indy 500 and has had a really beautiful career. But part of what I see there is it was the ability to wear both of those hats, where other drivers, I didn't see them wear that second hat. And, no shade, but I just never really heard of them after a little while longer. And same with my dad's career. I think it was easy for people to look at me oh, that'd be an awesome career to have, and to even try to maybe do the same thing and get stuck in the job of the coaching and not I had the privy of seeing the behind the scenes. My dad showed up for his job every day. He was the employee of his business, so he showed up excellently for that job. But when he started his own business, because he started coaching he started with a racing school. When he started his own business as a coach, technically the job was the same. And I think this is where people's mindset can get a little screwy. From the outside looking in, what he was doing was the same. And I think a lot of people can see someone doing something well, I could do that. Or if they work at a job at a 9 to 5, they're I do this all day long. Why wouldn't I just do this for myself and keep more of the profit? What they're missing is all of this hat we're talking about, the CEO hat, that doesn't get sold, that doesn't get talked about a lot. What I saw is the difference when my dad became his own business owner. The reason he became really successful and had a successful career that, I don't know, it was 50 years, as opposed to some of the other drivers we knew who tried to go out on their own and, ended up doing something different, is he also wore the hat of being an entrepreneur and a business owner and really treating that job he was employed by his own business. And so there was a lot of business work, right? CEO hat work that went on behind the scenes in terms of his own marketing, in terms of his own selling, in terms of, the relationship building, in terms of he put on a lot of events and took a lot of risk in terms of things that he did out of pocket that, again, when we just look at the job, someone else would be I could do that. Someone in his field who had the same skill set could see, I could do that, not seeing, yes, you can do the job, but can you do the CEO part, which is going out and securing X amount to rent a racetrack, to hire the corner workers and the paramedics, and put all of this on a line and then fill up 30 drivers to meet that to meet that expense so that you can make a profit? And can you do that on repeat? That's the part I think we sometimes miss in the business side, that I'm lovingly always reminding clients. It's like, yes, we need to be good at the job, and you have to do your job and deliver on the service. And we have to step back and see, as a business owner, we have more than one hat. And the hat that keeps the whole thing going is the hat of being a CEO and treating your business like a business. And I think the rub in our space is there's a lot of marketing that wants to sell treating your business like a business is hard work or not sexy, or like that's not why anyone got into business. I hear this sometimes from clients who are like, well, I didn't get into business to like do all this like marketing and sales stuff. And I think the question to ask, if that's some of the narrative coming up for you, is then why did you get into business? Because that is kind of the gig of being a business owner. And the sooner you can see that that is a beautiful thing and start to embrace it and love it, the easier it is to grow and scale your business. The more you're fighting the very thing it means to run a business, because you want the concept, because you want really just the job without a boss. I think what you have to remember is the job without a boss, that's actually a pretty scary thing. If we think about it, we really, what we have as business owners is the job with you as the boss, which is a really great thing when you think about it. I mean, I fucking love it, because it means, yes, there is the responsibility of wearing the CEO hat, but it also means I get to make all the decisions and do things my way. And I think that can be a mindset shift that can make you enjoy, or help you enjoy, that part of it, instead of, well, I left corporate because I didn't want to have a boss. I think seeing it's just you now, but we gotta find a way to embrace that. Okay, Sarah says, what a gift to see firsthand what it takes to create lasting success. Hats for days. Hats for days, and indeed, and oh my gosh, that's such a gift. I feel like I was so blessed because I got to see it from so many different lenses. I got to see it from I think you're referring to what I was sharing with my dad. I got to see it from the lens of what it was to be, because some of the drivers start really young. They're, it's like before they can drive legally. I want to say it's 14 or 15. So like I could see it like as they were like growing up, I guess, in the industry. So I could see it through their lens, and then also see it through my dad's business and career. We have a fair amount of business owners in my family as well. So it really is such a gift. And I found it to be such a gift as well, specifically with my dad's industry, because it is I think it's sort of like acting, or I think our entrepreneurial space, where things can be very much glamorized, and the concept of something can be glamorized, and it's like cool. It's like a cool thing to have, and that's wonderful. And I think it can sometimes be very, very misleading if you're not aware of what the trade-offs are, or I don't want to paint a bad picture. I think it's just really what the reality is for that success. And so yes, hats for days. But I think, again, when we can just see how can we embrace both of those hats and not make them wrong, and really see that is the common denominator that is underneath, that is behind a successful, profitable business that is continuing to bring in income. It's really starting to see, how can I wear the hat of CEO just as much, if not more, as I wear the hat of being the person providing the service or being in the job, and how can I really start to treat my business like a business? And again, even create that separation if you need to, instead of expecting to have a business and the results of the business and the glamorous fun parts of a business, because I think absolutely there's an element of truth to all of that, but expecting all of that without it being a business, it's just not really a fair thing to do to yourself. It wouldn't have been fair to me to spend 10 years acting and to expect that to not also be essentially like running a business and not to be the entertainment industry. It would have been so unfair for me to have put that expectation and then expect to get a result that wasn't what the reality of that industry was. So much more beneficial to see that's simply like the industry I'm entering. And the more I can see that and then find the way to wear the hats that serves this, the more I can get all the wonderful, yummy, glamorous parts that I want out of it, but also allow that to be sustainable. And it's no different than our online space. And again, I really sincerely don't think most people marketing are coming from a bad place. I think marketing is just tricky because most of the time we're reading posts or things that are like, I mean, I'm sure I have stuff where it's like, if it's one post or one reel or one podcast or one live stream or one sales landing page, there's only so much that can be put into something. And the whole idea with marketing is to speak to the problem you solve and the results you deliver. And it doesn't always serve a marketer to say, well, and here's the reality, what you're signing up for is being a business owner. And since I am in a blessed place in business where I'm fully booked, so I don't really have a whole lot to sell you right now. I feel like it's a lot easier for me to have these conversations with you and say all of that, like, it's not that that isn't true, it's just we want to look at what's also true that makes all of that happen. So we're not feeling like we got a bait and switch, or we're not like buying a concept of something and being really frustrated with what the reality is of making that concept, because I think that's the rub. And I think that's where I think embracing the hat of being a CEO, it's one of my favorite things. I love coaching, like love it, could do it all day long. It's my favorite thing about my business, but I also really genuinely love running a business and being a CEO. And so I think there's almost a way in which when we don't expect that, we just naturally don't like it because we feel like we got tricked. But I think if we can not feel tricked by it, we really allow the opportunity to see, well, how can this be just as enjoyable? How can I love this part just as much as what initially drew me to business? Okay, I have one more silly example. I feel like I'm hitting all over the head with this, so I won't go too long today unless you have questions, but I do feel like this is very important. I'm just checking my notes to see if there was anything. I have one more thing I'll share just in terms of splitting these two things out. But I have one more example. I feel like the example is maybe helpful. I shared this in a post, but I don't think it's been for like 4 years. So I've like always been an entrepreneur at heart, y'all. I like had a business when I was like, I don't know, 5. I like made my family buy play tickets and movie theater tickets. And I like had the best brownie stands ever that like actually were really profitable. So I am like someone who loves business. And when I lived in Los Angeles, when I was acting, one of my best girlfriends and I thought we wanted to open a bakery. And I'm sharing this example because I think this is such a great example of kind of the different hats and really being clear on that, because otherwise you can, I think, unintentionally really set yourself up for disappointment and frustration. And I remember when we were going through kind of the business planning phase because we needed, if we were going to open up a bakery, it was going to be small mini pies. I thought it was a really great idea. It was going to be called Lattice Bake Shop, like the lattice on a pie. We had all the things for this. We would have needed, well, not obviously, I did not have the funds at that time to invest in, because, you have to get like a space and there's a lot involved in that. And I remember when we were going through the process of like outlining the business plan and to get investors and to do all of this, we kind of had this simultaneous realization that, wait a second, we love making pies. We love like the whole concept and idea here, but we don't really, like, we love the concept of this more than we actually love the reality of what it's going to mean to, because for this, we were going to put in the sweat equity. So we would literally be doing the job, we would be the employees, but we would also have to be the business owners for a brick and mortar and wear the CEO hat for that. And I think we like had this conversation where we really realized, oh, there's the concept of this, and then there's the reality. And I don't even think we actually would have, I think we like dodged a bullet by not following this through. I don't know. I know some people who run bakeries and like they get all like the hats off using the hat analogy, because I think those are some real early mornings, and that is a trade-off I was not willing to make. But I think what we both really realized was what we didn't want, what we were not in love with, what we weren't ready to sign up for, was to be the CEO of a brick and mortar, especially since we were both acting at that time. We were already the CEO of 2 small businesses then. And it was really helpful to have that conversation. And I share that here because I think this is just another example of like being sold the concept of something and also checking in with like, it's still, there's that job part there, but really seeing what this really would mean is us being in the job all day long and then us having a second job of being the business owners that we really had no interest in whatsoever. And so again, bringing this here just so we can start to see those different pieces and start to see what we want in our service-based industry, what we want in building a sustainable and a profitable and a business that's set up for scalability is, yes, loving the job part, but also looking at how can you step into and love the CEO part, because that's really not the part you're going to want to outsource unless you're building a business you're planning on selling. But even until then, to get it to that place, you're still going to need to wear that CEO hat. So I think in closing, it's just really helpful to think about like those two roles in your business. And you might not have the job in your business as much if you sell more of like a service or a course, if you're not as much of a service provider. I just know most of this group, I think most of you are service providers in some way. If you're a service provider, I think just really seeing there is, yes, the job element, but also seeing you have two hats. I mean, we have lots of hats that we're always wearing, but we have two really important hats in terms of doing the job itself and the service and then being the business owner. And if you do read E-Myth Revisited, I think that is, like, we could even say there's more hats there where it's like you have the technician or you're doing the job. If you have a small team, right, then you're managing a team. I highly recommend outsourcing that when you're able to. That is, I feel like I wear more two hats because I have someone on my team who's more in charge of managing my team. I'm very grateful for. And then you have your hat as the CEO. And I think seeing that is really the hat we want to, I think that's almost the one like people want to like maybe I just don't have to think about this. And that's the one I really want to invite you today to think about. How can I embrace that hat? How can I fall in love with that hat? What do I love about that hat? How can I wear it more? And how can I see working on my business is as important as working in my business? I would say even more, because it's really hard to work in your business if you don't have the CEO working on the business and really steering that whole ship. And those really are two separate jobs. You can even think about it. I think about this in that I'm an employee. I mean, I literally, with my tax structure, I'm an employee of my own business. So when I'm on coaching calls, I am in my job. I am being employed by my business. But when I'm not on coaching calls, when I'm doing everything else, I am running my business. We need both. So I hope this is helpful for you just as a way to start thinking about this, and maybe just also normalize the like differentiating like between the concept and the reality of being a business owner. So you're not making yourself wrong if you find yourself with those different hats, but also seeing why they're important so you're not getting frustrated and finding a way to fall in love with that. And then I do think part of the concept that is sold is very, very real. I mean, I love my business. I love my work. I'm like the happiest person ever. And it is still a business. And I have to treat it like a business and run it like a business. And it is successful and sustainable and profitable and scalable because it is a business and it is treated like one and it is run by a business owner, as opposed to it is a freelance job that I have or something I do as a hobby, which there is nothing wrong with that at all. But I think that is like those are very, very different things. And that's the piece, because everyone here is a business owner. I think we want to keep looking back at is like, how can we treat businesses like a business and really embrace that as a beautiful thing, not as a bad thing where it's like, I got out of corporate because I don't want that. Instead of saying, no, you got out of corporate because you don't want someone else being the boss. You want to be the boss. And I think that can be the mindset shift to embrace the business side of things a little bit more. All right, I love y'all. I hope this was super helpful for you. Before I forget, we have a new masterclass coming up at the end of this month in about 2 weeks called Your Money Map, and I will drop a link for that. We are going to walk through a really easy framework, and I call it a business flow, but a really easy framework to understand literally what we're talking about today, treating your business like a business and understanding the flow of your business and how money is flowing through your business and some of the strategic elements to have in place and how I think about this and how I walk clients through this. So this will be something you can apply so you can create your own map, but we're gonna walk through this together. We have a really nice, fun flow chart, as well as some journaling prompts and questions for you. So if you sign up for that, you'll get that bonus PDF along with that. I think it's kimargetsinger.com/money-map, I believe is the URL, but I will drop a link for this afterwards. It's on the 29th, so 2 weeks from now. And so if you want to sign up for that, I will drop a link, and then tomorrow I will pick the winner for content that stands out and sells, and then I'll be back next week with another live stream for y'all. Lots of love.